Right, hey guys, how we doing? Back with another video from NC Hammer 23. So I really enjoyed the the new know nothing about Minato video, and I said I'd go back and check out some other ones. And Kakashi is really cool. So I thought it was really cool to go into the nothing about Kakashi because I feel like with Kakashi, he's one of the main side characters that has a lot going on that affects the main narrative, if you know what I mean. So like Naruto, Sasuke are the main characters within Naruto. Sakura potentially, yeah. If you took Team Seven, the younger people, but Kakashi is one of the side characters that has a lot going on in his history that affects everything that happens within the narrative of Naruto. Like I remember Nuxtaku had a whole thing where he felt like Kakashi was the main character of Naruto, which he's not, but I can understand where he's coming from. Majority of what happened to him affects the story of Naruto completely. So let's go in depth and look into Kakashi with this you know nothing about.
You see, sometimes in shows, and specifically in anime, we're given main characters, and while those main characters are great, perfect even as main characters, sometimes they're side characters
like Kakashi
who seem to shine significantly brighter than those main characters.
Now, and from the get-go, he's interesting, but I was trying to explain to one of my bosses in work who does not do anime at all about Kakashi, because there was a footballer that wore the Obito mask, well, the Toby mask, and he was asking about it, and I ended up going into the whole in depth of why his reveal was so amazing because of, and he was actually like, whoa, that sounds cool. Never gonna watch it because I don't do anime, but that is sick. Yeah.
And Naruto is absolutely no exception to this rule. The greatest evidence to this fact is Kakashi, the unanimous #1 most popular character in the entirety of Naruto.
Well, Minato is, because he got voted, but anyway.
Kakashi, to the core of his character, represents the values that Naruto tries to instill. He has been through as much, if not more, than the majority of the main characters in this show.
Yeah, he's been through a lot.
And still rose to the rank of the 6th Hokage. But the reason that a lot of people like Kakashi is because A, he's hot as hell, and B, he just kind of seems cool. This being the reason for Kakashi's popularity is a travesty, because the public perception of Kakashi isn't incorrect. He is hot and he is cool, but Kakashi as a character represents so many deeper tones that are pivotal in Naruto's plotline, and the fact that he doesn't get the appreciation for that representation is criminal. Kakashi's public perception should be about significantly more than just the fact that he's a hot white-haired teacher.
Stop telling me he's hot.
Representation in Naruto of very real-world struggles and how to overcome them. In a sense, he is one of the most relatable characters in the entirety of Naruto fiction.
It's got a lot of emotional baggage.
I'm gonna make you see that. See, because today we're doing a long, and I mean long-awaited video. You know nothing about Kakashi. So Kakashi, the famous copy ninja, the last of the Hatake clan, the leader of Team 7, a man who lost his father,
what a legend,
love interest, and his best friend, all while a child. A man who's had to overcome more loss than Gaara, Tsunade, Naruto, and maybe even Sasuke.
And he still is so big.
So Sasuke does give him a good run for his money. But how was Kakashi able to overcome these losses? What did these losses mean to him? And what symbolic themes does he embody? We're gonna get to all those questions and many more today. But first, let's start these videos off in the way that we tend to start these videos off, at the beginning. See, Kakashi began his life with a loss. Almost as though he was cursed to live a life of loss. His mother died when he was very young.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Now, as to whether this was in childbirth or when Kakashi was an infant, we don't necessarily know. We simply know Kakashi was very young. And
right, because I only knew about the dad, and then the dad...
Because of this loss, Kakashi was forced to be raised alone by his father, Sakamo Hatake.
Right.
See, Sakamo Hatake was a ninja of legendary renown, being stated to be stronger than all 3 of the legendary Sanin.
Really? Alright, cool.
While they were in their early 20s combined. A man who went toe-to-toe with Granny Chiyo numerous times.
No, I didn't know this. Oh man, I've not...
A man who was said to have saved Konoha more than once. See,
and he's getting a Funko Pop. Legend.
In the early days of Kakashi's
he
life,
actually
he
is.
looked up to his father because Kakashi himself wanted to be a shinobi, and he was being raised by one of the greatest shinobis of his era. However, one day after Kakashi enrolled in the Ninja Academy, his father came home from a mission. But Sakamoto had failed this mission, something that had never happened to Sakamoto Hatake ever before. Sakamoto had failed the mission for one reason and one reason alone. You see, Sakamoto could have been successful in this mission very easily. However, if Sakamoto was successful in this mission, it would have resulted in the death of his teammates. So instead of leaving his teammates to die, Sakamoto decided to have the mission fail. And while the failure of this mission did lead to dire consequences for Konoha, his teammates were still alive. But that wasn't good enough. Not for Konoha, not even for the teammates he saved. See, considering the fact that Kakashi was about 6 at this time, because that's when you enroll in the Ninja Academy, and he was about 13 at the end of the Third Great Shinobi World War, most likely this mission occurred either in the lead up to the Third Great Shinobi World War or during the very early days of it. And thus this failed mission could have opened the door for enemies to attack Konoha. However, regardless of how dire the consequences of the failure of this mission were, it would never in a million years justify the way that Sakamoto Hatake was vilified. Sakamoto Hatake was the hero of the Leaf for the Second Great Shinobi World War. In fact, he killed so many enemy shinobi during the Second Great Shinobi World War, he earned the nickname the White Fang, a nickname based off of his chakra saber that glowed white when used. Because Sakamoto Hatake was so vilified by the village that once revered him as a hero, he took his own life.
Yeah, I knew that. He was disrespected for it.
In this moment, Sakamoto Hatake is a perfect representation of a very modern day issue. This moment perfectly represents the meat grinder that is the military industrial complex. Sakamoto Hatake is a man who fought blood in tooth for Konoha all throughout the Second Great Shinobi World War. A man responsible for saving Konoha more than once. But one wrong decision from Sakamoto Hatake is all it took for his nation to turn on
to hate him,
to forget the deeds of his past and focus solely on the failed mission that he had just came back from. Nobody stopped him to thank him for what he had done in the past. Nobody tried to understand that he was trying to help his teammates. Even the teammates he helped turned on him. And in a moment of blindness, the nationalism of Konoha made people forget that they were talking about a human and not a motive. People who had never seen the front lines of action were telling Sakamoto Hatake what decision he should have made, telling him that the scheming and the politics of the government above him are more important than the people who serve directly next to it. And thus Sakamoto Hatake took his own life. Think for a second what this would imprint upon a child. A child who
who doesn't have a mother. A hero that he's completely looked up to. And then he
grown up with only one father figure, only one idol, the hero of the Leaf. And in one day, just one day, that idol, that father figure that Kakashi spent his entire life looking up to, became the villain of the entire Leaf.
God damn, that's nasty.
And then that villain left him alone for the rest of his life. See, upon discovering Sakamoto's dead body, Kakashi decided that the shinobi rules should always be followed. That the mission will always be more important than your comrade.
Yeah, and then Obito changes that. I like this.
And I mean, what other conclusion?
It completely explains his going into the origin of how Kakashi got his Sharingan.
Was he supposed to come to in this moment? For as much as Kakashi understood, breaking the rules now meant death. But at the same time, Kakashi learned a very important lesson. That your nation doesn't actually care about you. They'll turn on you the second you slip up. And that a real ninja, a real shinobi, does their deed in the dark and doesn't look for recognition for it.
To the letter.
Recognition doesn't get you anywhere the day you miss. And thus Kakashi, determined to outshine his own father and rewrite in the history books what Hatake means, decided to apply himself at Ninja Academy and became known as one of the smartest, brightest, strongest ninjas of his generation. And because Kakashi was so applied to his studies, he graduated from the Ninja Academy in 1 year. At the age of 5. I was dumb earlier. Most people go to the Ninja Academy at 6, but Kakashi went at like 4 or 5. And thus, as a 5-year-old, Kakashi became a Geni. Here's a little fun fact about Kakashi. He was 4 years younger than both Obito and Rin, who became...
Oh. Why? Right, he was
getting
younger.
when they were 9. Kind of makes the whole rivalry between Obito and Kakashi feel weird, right?
Yeah, that's odd. That is odd.
Right,
all right.
like you really beefing with a 5-year-old? But upon becoming a Genin, Kakashi joined the Genin squad of Obito and Rin under Minato. And in a moment where filler was actually helpful to the insight of a character, Minato gave this newly formed Genin team the Bell test. And in this Bell test, obviously Minato is significantly faster and stronger than all of the Genin trying to steal these bells.
Of course.
But in this Bell test, Minato is also holding back less against Kakashi than he is against Obito and Rin. Because obviously if he held as much back against Kakashi, Kakashi would have got the bells without the help of Obito and Rin. And in this moment, we get a beautiful look into how Sakamo's death and the circumstances surrounding it have imprinted themselves into Kakashi's brain. See, Kakashi almost immediately understood that Minato was holding back less against him than he was his other 2 teammates. And Kakashi decided to capitalize on this, using Obito and Rin as pawns in
Yeah, oh, that's interesting because he mentioned this in the Minato one as well.
the scheme for him to take Minato's bells, perfectly representing the exact opposite of what Sakamo Hatake would have done in this situation. See, in a real-life combat situation, Kakashi would have essentially hung his 2 teammates out to dry in order to complete the mission acquiring of the bells, thus flying directly in the face of what Sakamo did. And though Minato did technically consider this teamwork and therefore approved all of them,
He just used them.
he told them that they need to work on their teamwork and make it a 2-way street. A sentiment that Rin and Obito adopted, but Kakashi didn't. And then after a year of doing missions as Genin, Kakashi and the rest of his team were able to take the Chunin exams. And at 6 years old, Kakashi became a Chunin. There's irony in this as well.
God damn.
See, the reason that the Ninja Academy and the Chunin exams were created by Tobirama and Hashirama was to ensure that children would never be seen on the battlefield again.
But goddamn.
See, Tobirama and Hashirama lost a 7-year-old brother on the battlefield
No
against
way.
the Uchiha.
Whoa. Okay, I need to read these light novels and all the other stuff, man. Goddamn.
Founding ideologies of Konoha was to make sure that children of that age would never see war again. However, in this moment, by Kakashi being allowed to become a Chunin and therefore enter
It goes against it.
wars, he was once again the living embodiment of the hypocrisy of a government that genuinely didn't care about its own ideologies.
Yeah.
He was the representation of the fact that a government could wax poetic about all of the high and mighty things they're doing while secretly absolutely doing none of them. And if he was just a Chunin who was existing in Konoha, maybe that would have been fine. But like I said in the beginning of the video, the Third Great Shinobi World War lasted about 8 years, and it ended with the Battle of Kanabi Bridge, of which Kakashi was 12 during, implying that this 6-year-old brand new indoctrinated Chunin was most likely heading directly to the Third Great Shinobi World War. Kakashi had passed through a system built in order to make sure that people like him wouldn't enter war to enter a war. He is the symbol of the Leaf's hypocrisy. And after inevitably taking missions during the Third Great Shinobi World War for almost 8 years, Minato's team of Chunin and 1 Jonin in Kakashi, who had recently been upgraded to a Jonin, were assigned one of the most important missions in the Third Great Shinobi World War. They had to go to the village hidden in the grass, a small village located off the border of Konoha, between Konoha and the Hidden Stone. And in the village hidden in the grass, they had to destroy a bridge that was being used to supply the front lines of the Hidden Stone Shinobi, the Kanabi Bridge. And once this bridge was destroyed, these frontline forces would be essentially starved out without anybody from behind them bringing them resources. But to attack a bridge behind the front line of the Hidden Stone Shinobi, you have to go into enemy lines.
Yeah.
And Konoha was asking a 12-year-old Jonin and 2 16-year-old
It's a big ask.
Chunin without their team leader, because Minato was on the front lines of the war, to accomplish this feat. And naturally, upon getting behind enemy lines, they encountered Iwa Shinobi. Iwa Shinobi, who were eventually able to kidnap Rin. And it's in this moment, once again, we see what Sakamo's death did to Kakashi. You see, upon Rin being kidnapped, Obito immediately wants to go rescue her. But Kakashi, who's the team leader at the moment, decides it would be better to abandon Rin than to abandon the mission.
Which is mad for a child to even think that. So now that he's even said that Kakashi's 4 years younger than these two, for a child at that young of age to go, no, leave them. It's like, wow.
That maybe after they complete their mission, they can save Rin. But Obito's not okay with this, and therefore he decides to go run off to save Rin.
Yeah, because Obito got more of a mature brain going on here, I suppose. I don't know how to word it, but yeah, all right.
On his own. But before Obito left, he told Kakashi that he believed Sakamoto Hatake was a hero. And he told Kakashi the same sentiment that Sakamoto Hatake probably believed when he decided to abandon his own mission.
Yeah.
That those who abandoned their mission are scum. But
yes, and that's where the phrase comes from.
Those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. Kakashi lets Obito runs away and then continues on his mission by himself. Until as he's on his way to Kanabi Bridge, he realizes that Obito was correct. Why? Why now? Why didn't Kakashi realize that this is what Sakamoto always believed? Why did it take Obito telling him this to bring Kakashi back from the brink? Because sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah, sometimes you just need someone to actually just tell you how it is.
Kakashi, upon losing Sakamoto, shut down. In fact, what we saw with Kakashi is the reason that a lot of people deal with OCD today. You see, OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder, is usually tied into trauma. A hyperfixation on a traumatic event that leads the person suffering with OCD to believe that there was something that they could have done that would have stopped said traumatic event. And thus, for the rest of their life, it becomes imprinted in their own head that they have to do certain things in order to prevent other traumatic things. And for Kakashi, that was just following the rules.
Yeah.
But Obito in that moment reminded Kakashi of how he felt about Sakamoto growing up, who echoed the sentimentality of Kakashi as to how they felt about his father. All it took for Kakashi was one person to remind him that it doesn't matter how the nation or the government or the people around him felt about his father. Kakashi knew that his father died a hero. And when Kakashi remembered that his father was a hero, he realized what his father would do in this situation. And that was turn around and go save Rin. And when Kakashi arrived on the scene of Obito fighting the Iwa Shinobi, he slashed one of them with his white chakra saber that he inherited from his father. A symbolic representation of him inheriting the will of his father,
dad.
Sakamoto Hatake,
That's so
living
sick.
up to the name of the White Fang.
Love
and
it.
upon cutting down one of these Iwa Shinobi, Obito Kakashi launched a counter-offensive against them in order to save Rin. However, during this counter-offensive, though, Kakashi has his left eye severely damaged. However, it's in that moment that Obito awakens his Sharingan and uses it to kill an Iwa Shinobi who had made himself invisible, named Taiseki. Upon killing Taiseki, Obito and Kakashi went to kill the last Iwa Shinobi, Kako. However, Kako, not wanting to be captured by these two, forced a cave in the cave where he was holding Rin. And Kakashi, who at the moment only had one eye, was struck in his newly found blind spot by falling debris. However, before a truly large boulder could fall on Kakashi, he was pushed out of the way by Obito. And this boulder crushed half of Obito's body. With the debris too heavy for Obito to get out,
take that Sharingan
for him to ever recover from, Obito decided to give Kakashi a gift for him becoming a Jonin. That gift? His newly awoken Sharingan. Upon having the Sharingan placed in his face by Rin, Kakashi went to go face the Iwa Shinobi reinforcements. And after cutting down the man who had triggered the cave-in with his Chidori, which he could now use with the ability of the Sharingan, Kakashi began to fight back against the Iwa Shinobi for as long as hard as he could. And when it looked like he was about to be finished by them once and for all, he was saved by Minato. And after defeating the Iwa Shinobi, Kakashi and Rin had to deal with the reality of leaving a teammate behind. The weight and the sorrow that one feels upon truly losing a teammate. And in that moment, Kakashi finally understood why Sakamoto couldn't subject himself to this kind of hurt.
Yeah, he finally he gets why his dad did what he did finally, and it's like, Kakashi's so complex.
And in that moment, made peace with Sakamoto's death, only for the hurt of Sakamoto's death to be replaced with the hurt of the death of Obito. And upon returning to Konoha to mourn the death of Obito, Kakashi was faced by Uchihas up in arms. See, the Uchihas weren't comfortable with Kakashi, who had no...
Yeah, he's like, what's this guy doing with our Sharingan?
Uchiha blood wielding a Sharingan. And the only person who took Kakashi's side in all of this was Fugaku.
No way. That's so sick, the head of the clan.
See, Fugaku told Kakashi that he would honor Obito's last gift and let him keep the Sharingan.
Yo.
But that doesn't change a whole lot. Obito had just given his life for the success of a mission. And while you could say that more directly Obito gave his life to save his teammates, he was still to be considered a hero in the Leaf. However, the only person who respected his dying wish amongst his clan was one Uchiha who happened to be in an advantageous situation. Once again, displaying to Kakashi that it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you give your life for your country. At the end of the day, the nation doesn't care about you. So good choices or bad choices, the best thing that you can do is make sure that those around you get out with you. But unfortunately for Kakahshi, this was the worst possible time to adopt that sentimentality. Because even though Kanami Bridge had been destroyed and the Hidden Stones offensive had been crippled by the loss of a supply line, the third Great Shinobi World War was Konoha versus everybody. But Konoha didn't know that everybody included Madara and the Hidden Mist. You see, a little bit later in the war, after the destruction of Kanami Bridge, Rin is once again abducted, but this time by the Hidden Mist.
Oh, this is very shortly after when Obito,
And their goal is to seal Isobu, the Three Tails, into her and then feign like she's been released and chase after her. Ideally, with this situation, they would chase her all the way back to Konoha, where Isobu would rage out of her and destroy Konoha. However, Rin was aware that Isobu was sealed inside of her and that seal would break upon her entering Konoha. So when Kakashi went to the Hidden Mist to save her, she revealed this to him. And as Kakashi and Rin made their way back to Konoha, Rin begged Kakashi to kill her. And in that moment, Kakashi reached a crossroads. Because Kakashi's entire life has been a choice between your teammates in the mission. But what if the mission is your teammates? See, the old Kakashi would have chosen to kill Rin because the loss of a teammate in the face of Konoha's safety is a nothing choice.
But that's the mission.
Death and the realization that the people around you are more important than the scheming of your nation, Kakashi decided to not kill Rin. However, eventually the Hidden Mist Shinobi caught up with them. And the true sick irony of this moment is that the Hidden Mist Shinobi were only feigning trying to stay up with them. The Hidden Mist Shinobi weren't going to kill them, because if they killed them, Isobu would have just been released a couple of weeks later. The Hidden Mist Shinobi wanted Rin and Kakashi back in Konoha, but as Kakashi started to fight these Hidden Mist Shinobi, eventually Rin jumped in front of him, and the straight line mechanism of the Chidori worked against Kakashi. See, while Kakashi using his Sharingan dealt with the blind spot that the Chidori creates, it is still a straight line, very quick attack. Rin, understanding this weakness of the Chidori, jumped in front of him while he was using it, forcing Kakashi to kill her.
Damn. And then
and in this moment, Kakashi and Obito,
the Mengenko,
awoke their Mongol.
I am loving this explanation of it all.
Sharingan. But when people talk about Rin's death, they only ever talk about the impact it had on Obito. And yes, of course, obviously, Obito was...
Of course, it had to affect Kakashi as well.
in love with Rin. But this moment
there's still a love aspect to the friendship as well.
Literally broke Kakashi. Kakashi had just made peace with his father's death, understanding that his father made the right choice in protecting his comrades, and then he's just had to murderize one teammates with the wrong choice in taking his own life. That grief had been replaced with the death of Obito, but a promise to keep Rin safe. And before Kakashi knew it, he fell through on that promise. Since Rin's death, more than anything, affected Kakashi because he felt as though it was his fault. And as Kakashi awoke from this ordeal against the Hidden Mist, he looked around and realized he was the only person left. No father, the only teammate left under Minato. And it's at this moment that Kakashi begins to symbolize something very different than what he used to. You see, Kakashi, along with Tsunade, are the two best and possibly only embodiments of PTSD within the Naruto universe. And ironically, they both represent the two ways that the majority of people who deal with PTSD deal with it. Now, obviously, PTSD can be manifested in a million different ways, but the way that we see most commonly talked about is through war. And when somebody is dealing with war-related PTSD, there seems to be two things that they do. One is the avoidance of all war, loud noises, anything that would remind you of those moments. And the other is making that reality your normality. Some people, after going through enough traumatic events, can't go back to regular life. They find themselves lost in what most would consider peaceful environments, and thus they return to the only place that made them feel normal, the place that traumatized them, war. You see, obviously, Tsunade represents the former. Her hemophobia is a result of watching those she loved die in war. But Kakashi represents the latter. After being bathed in the blood of so many of his comrades and the people that he loved, he figured the only way to work through this was to ingratiate himself into combat, to kill the world around him and cut off all personal connections, essentially killing the human inside of him to become a weapon wielded by Konoha. Because a weapon doesn't have to feel anything. Minato, seeing what Kakashi was going through by isolating all of his close friends so he didn't have to get close to them for fear of ever hurting them like he did Rin, decided maybe a change of pace where Kakashi could live as the weapon he wanted to be would be best for him, and told Kakashi that the Anbu would be a good place for him. And honestly, Kakashi did thrive in the Anbu.
I imagine he did. Like, he's got so much potential than anyone else at his age. Just his age. Like, there's people older than him that could never, do what he's able to.
He shot up the ranks until he was eventually an Anbu captain, the highest title one can achieve
which is mental.
Outside of Hokage. And as an Anbu captain, he was the leader of Team Ro. See, in the Anbu, Kakashi wasn't with his friends. These were fellow weapons, fellow soldiers, high-level combatants that were putting their life on the line for Konoha every single day.
Whoa.
People that Kakashi didn't feel personally attached to and therefore wasn't afraid to lose. Now, as to whether or not you believe that this is the best thing for Kakashi or anybody in the situation to do is up to you. Some people would argue that ingratiating yourself in whatever you're comfortable with is the true purpose of a human. And whether that be eating pizza or being a soldier in the war, that's truly a human's purpose. While others would point out the flaws of the system that made these people this way. But during his years in the Anbu, Kakashi was different than when he was as a Jonin. He was ruthless, never hesitating to kill an enemy. And he was cold in his demeanor towards his teammates, all of which were signs that he was still upset about the death of Rin. So Minato, understanding that Kakashi was slowly but surely losing himself, decided to change his objective. See, it's well known that the Anbu protect the Hokage, but the Anbu protect everybody associated with the Hokage, including the Hokage's wife. So Minato selected Kakashi to protect Kushina.
Oh, what? Alright. And she died in the Ninetales attack,
specifically during her pregnancy. And Kakashi was actually very good at this. He watched Kushina from the shadows, making sure that during her day-to-day life she was safe. And when she was home with Minato, he would go to the graves of Obito and Rin, telling them all about his life and his regrets now that they're gone. But once again, Kakashi's tragedies don't end there. See, Kakashi had been assigned to protecting Kushina, but on the night of Naruto's birth, and therefore the night that Kurama was released, Kakashi couldn't help Kushina.
No.
Kakashi, amongst all of his other young shinobi like Might Guy and Asuma, were kept in a barrier on the night of the Ninetales attack. And they were told to stay in this barrier for their own safety. And this was told to them by Hiruzen, who was trying to keep them safe. But because they were kept in this barrier, both Minato and Kushina died on the night of the Nine-Tailed Fox attack. And once again, Kakashi had failed his mission. He
He's not been able to save his comrades.
couldn't keep Obito alive, he couldn't keep Rin safe, and he couldn't keep Kushina alive, who he was tasked to keep alive by his master, the last remaining team member he had from Team Minato. And once again, Kakashi looked around, and he was alone. And thus Kakashi slipped even further into his depression, and he slipped even further into becoming a weapon. So much so that while he was grieving the death of Minato and Kushina, he was approached by Danzo, who told him the reason he wasn't able to defend Kushina and Minato on that night is because Hiruzen left them there, and that it was Hiruzen's fault, and therefore Kakashi should come work for Danzo.
Oh, blame it on this guy. Come to me, mate.
In the root. And thus, in that moment, Kakashi was the perfect embodiment of radicalization. How militaries or ideologies will capitalize on at-risk youths or those who just went through traumatic events in order to radicalize them to their cause. And how these militaries or ideologies use these angry children as weapons. Mind you, Kakashi at this point, 14, 15, at the oldest. And thus Kakashi became radicalized by Danzo, going so far as to spy on Hiruzen for Danzo. And while serving in the root, Kakashi was introduced to a child known as Kinoue, who we later learned was Yamato. And Yamato had wood release. But Kakashi understood that wood release came from Hashirama, and therefore he was confused as to how Yamato acquired it. And thus he broke into the Hokage's residence to look for research about this. But when he broke in, he was caught by the third, a
No way.
man who he despised. You see, because for about a year, Kakashi had been having poison slipped into his ear by Danzo about how Hiruzen was this dictator who wanted to see Minato die so he could reassume his position as the leader of the village.
Yeah, but he's actually a pretty cool sound guy, Kakashi. Oh, come on.
But when Hiruzen caught Kakashi in his office, he freely gave up information to Kakashi about the wood release trials and how the Hidden Leaf used to do them, but they abandoned them because they led to too many deaths. And from this one interaction, Kakashi realized that Hiruzen wasn't a bad guy.
Yeah,
and
cool.
in fact, this made him realize that Danzo had access to wood release through Yamato during the Ninetales attack and decided to not use it to suppress the Ninetales. Something that Kakashi realizes that Hiruzen would have done, thus saving Minato. And thus, Kakashi is snapped out of his radicalization, a representation of the deprogramming that a lot of people have to go through after radicalization, and how simple communication between those who have been radicalized and those they've been radicalized against can make them realize that they're not that different. It was at this point that Kakashi then decided to reveal to Hiruzen that Danzo had a plan to assassinate him tomorrow. It's at this point that Hiruzen asks Kakashi for help against
what the fuck? What?
This assassination plot. And Kakashi then lures out the would-be assassins, one of which was Yamato, and defeats them. However, in a show of Kakashi breaking his programming, he doesn't kill Yamato. Kakashi's ruthlessness and his cold...
Whoa! So Yamato could have potentially died. Imagine that with Naruto later on. Whoa!
...towards his own comrades begins to melt away through Yamato, because Kakashi realized that Yamato was no different from him, a weapon being wielded by those higher up. After successfully foiling the plot to assassinate Hiruzen, Kakashi wants to retire from the Anbu, but Hiruzen insists that he stays in the Anbu and becomes his right-hand man. Because here's the thing about Hiruzen, he's not the bad guy that the Naruto community makes him out to be. He understood what Kakashi was going through. He knows everybody Kakashi has...
He's always got it. He understands his children of the city
lost, and thus to make sure Kakashi wouldn't head down the same path as Orochimaru, Hiruzen kept him close. The irony in all of this is that Kakashi would then begin to investigate Orochimaru and find out that Orochimaru was in fact the one who was responsible for wood release. And thus in the anime, after the third failed to apprehend Orochimaru after finding his human experimentations, Kakashi was waiting outside for him. You see, this doesn't happen in the manga, but the events of this filler technically don't contradict anything we've seen in the manga, and therefore I just treated this information given to us through the anime. And as Kakashi goes to attack Orochimaru, he's paralyzed by Orochimaru's killing intent. Essentially, he's so intimidated by Orochimaru, who's one of the 3 legendary Sannin, so makes sense that he can't move against him. However, after Orochimaru is significantly far past Kakashi and Kakashi has regained his composure, he goes to find Orochimaru. But Kakashi is eventually kidnapped by the Iburi clan. See, the Iburi clan are a clan with a clan-specific Kekkei Genkai, a Kekkei Genkai that allows them to turn into smoke. They're allied with Orochimaru because they can't control when they turn into smoke.
Oh, this was in that weird, like, Shippuden filler bit about Kakashi's backstory, weren't it? Oh, was not a fan, but alright.
So some of them accidentally turn...
I didn't watch this. I remember trying to watch this, but I was just like,
turn into smoke and then get hit by a breeze, and once the smoke separates, they die. But Orochimaru's curse seal was giving them better control over this smoke. But before the Iburi clan or Orochimaru could kill Kakashi, Yamato showed up. And Yamato, who was a project of Orochimaru's and therefore an ally to the Iburi clan, convinced the Iburi clan that he should be the one to interrogate Kakashi. But since Kakashi had spared Yamato's life, Yamato capitalized on the situation and broke Kakashi out with the help of an Iburi clan member called Yakimi. Now, once again, this is all filler, but it gives us a look into Kakashi's life during a very...
I see what he's doing. Yeah, it's fair.
And the decisions that he makes along this arc are very in line with the growth that he undergoes as a character. See, because after breaking out with Yamato and Yakimi, Kakashi plans to use Yakimi as a pawn to capture Orochimaru. Because Orochimaru needs Yakimi's blood in order to take the Iburi clan Kekkei Genkai onto himself and turn into smoke to get across Konoha's border. But upon realizing that Yakimi and Yamato's relationship is very similar to how Kakashi and Rin's relationship was, Kakashi decides against using Yakimi. Once again, showing that through connections with people like Yamato and Hiruzen, Kakashi has begun to rehumanize. His coldness and his willingness to use other people for the completion of a mission has begun to fade. But there's something more than that. Upon returning to Konoha, Kakashi decides not to report any information on the Iburi or the route to Konoha, because Kakashi doesn't want Konoha or the route to get involved with a group of people just trying to survive, even though that group of people had colluded with Orochimaru. And thus he is throwing away what would have been an important piece of intel to Konoha in order to save the lives of people he barely knows, which lives up to Sakamo's ideology that people are more important than the mission. And thus, after
years
and years of lost promises and
Kakashi's had to go through so many like self-learned lessons. It's mad.
And lost family, Kakashi has begun to once again de-weaponize himself and re-immerse himself into everyday life through the help of
person. My God.
And Yamato. And the thing is, that's what it takes. Any person who's resigned to being used by the greater powers at bay needs people to bring them back. Without people like Hiruzen or Yamato, Kakashi would have spent the rest of his life in the Anbu, cutting down faces
being a murderer.
Think about. And thus, even though Kakashi would stay in the Anbu for about 4 more years after this moment, his demeanor completely changed. So much so that a couple of years later, when Kakashi was still investigating the disappearance of Orochimaru, he was attacked by Yamato, who was sent by Danzo to take Kakashi's Sharingan. You see, Danzo was afraid that the Sharingan in his face would eventually go blind, and thus he needed Kakashi's Sharingan as backup, and so he sent Yamato. But instead of cutting Yamato down in that moment, Kakashi pled with him and told him that their friendship was more important than the mission, a sentiment almost directly copied from Obito. And after some convincing and a little
Obito's
like
stuff he said to him really stayed with him.
Abandon the route. But because Yamato decides to abandon the route, Danzo tries to place a curse seal on him. And thus Kakashi goes to the third Hokage and pleads with him to help Yamato. And thus Hiruzen and Kakashi together break into the headquarters of the route to save Yamato. And Yamato
that makes sense as to why he doesn't have a seal on his tongue, because Sai has one on, doesn't he? Yeah.
Team Row.
I remember stuff.
Kakashi. See, people usually give credit to Kakashi breaking out of his depression to him leading Team 7. However, Kakashi has been on this path for a long time. The first troubled soul he had to fix and teach was Yamato. And thus, while they were still in the Anbu and therefore still technically being used as weapons of the state, Kakashi was taking legitimate steps forward towards being the man he would soon become. And Kakashi's team would only grow. You see, because 2 years after getting Yamato on his team, Itachi Uchiha would join Team Row. And after they were put together, they were assigned to follow a group of Konoha politicians who were going to the Land of Woods. But once the people from Konoha got to the Land of Woods, the Prajna group, a group of rogue shinobi...
Oh wait, so did Kakashi get his Sharingan before Itachi had one? Yo!
Tried to attack them, and Itachi and Kakashi flew in to protect the group from Konoha. And after defeating the Prajna group, Kakashi saw some of his old self in Itachi. In fact, he went so far as to say that he was impressed with Itachi's skills, but Itachi needed to dial back his mercilessness and work on teamwork, specifically how it's important to make friends with those you're working with and use them as teammates. However, unfortunately, eventually Itachi was promoted out of Team Row, made an Anbu captain at the age of 12 years old.
God.
Which was unfortunate because Team Row was actually sent to pacify a brewing rebellion in the Uchiha compound. However, when Team Row got to the compound, they found the entire clan dead. And when it was revealed to Kakashi that Itachi had done it all under the pursuit of power, Kakashi lamented that he wasn't a good enough mentor to Itachi, feeling responsible that he hadn't guided Itachi on a good enough path. And in this moment, Kakashi's drive to form the youth into good, incredible shinobi was born. But because of what had happened with Itachi and the fact that Hiruzen knew exactly what had happened with Itachi, he believed that people with kind hearts didn't belong in the Anbu. And thus he essentially released Kakashi, which is a full circle moment for Kakashi. See, when he joined the Anbu, he joined it so he never had to feel his heart again. He wanted to become an unmovable, unshakable killing machine. But through the experience he had in the Anbu and the route, he became unsuited for the Anbu. And thus he took one step closer to being the mentor for Team 7. And over the years, he would take on multiple Genin teams. However, he would fail every single one of them because they didn't embody teamwork. See, Kakashi had lived his entire life switching between whether or not teamwork was important or not. His father's death made him feel as though teamwork wasn't
so
important.
Many life factors. So many life factors affecting how he should go as a ninja. It's mad, and it's nice to see that, like, even though he wears a mask, you can see the smile under there.
Teamwork was important, but then Rin died to his own hands, so he became a merciless, cold killer that didn't believe in collaborating. But then Hiruzen reached out a hand, and Yamato became somebody he needed to protect. And through having a mentor and successfully protecting somebody like Yamato, he once again began to believe. And he began to believe so much that it became a core value of his. So much so that he wouldn't let Genin become Chunin unless they bought into it. Kakashi then spends the entirety of Naruto simply trying to get his team to believe in working together. And once he finally does find a team that can work together in Team 7, it makes him a better person. See, Kakashi sees his old team in this new Team 7, except now he has the power to protect them. Now he has the power he didn't have for Itachi. He can impart positive change on each and every single one of these ninjas, while at the same time making sure that they're protected. You see, while Kakashi tries to do the majority of the heavy lifting in the Land of Waves arc because he doesn't want to lose his team again, the Land of Waves arc makes him realize that the team of Genin that he has not only can fight for themselves, but will work together and
they'll fight for each other.
And ever since the moment of watching Naruto turn into a demon wind shuriken so that Sasuke could throw him to get behind Zabuza, Kakashi realized that he didn't have to worry about these Genin. And thus, after this moment, Team 7 begins to operate more like a team of equals than a team with a leader. And by operating in this team of equals and finding his life purpose, Kakashi begins to break out of his depression. And by finally living up to the sentimentality of working in a team that he's been extolling for so long, Kakashi finds his true strength. See, well, obviously every single member of his team goes to train with one of the legendary Sannin. The experience and teaching that he gave to each and every single one of these team members cannot be undersold. But at the same time, the lessons they imparted to him are just as powerful. See, Kakashi had stagnated in his power. He wasn't training like Might Guy. He had just become a weapon of semi-massive power for the Leaf during his Anbu career. But we see in Shippuden, specifically the early episodes of Shippuden, that during the time skip, Kakashi began to train to get more powerful. And this increase in power is a symbolic event, because as Kakashi begins to deal with his PTSD and his depression, his power increases, going so far as to unlock the Gate of Life, which is the first of the 8 gates, which is meant to show him starting his new life. And as he forgives himself for his past, he begins to accrue more power.
Mate, if like these last couple of weeks, I've had a bit of I'm relating to this. So I usually take medication for my anxiety, and that's because I feel like I'm no good at my job. But these last few weeks, I've been kicking ass. So I've just, the last few days, not been taking it. And I am buzzing. I am like, boom, I'm on it. Because I'm there. And it's just like, sometimes it's like, in there, you gotta take it out and just go for it. And just, bam. And I'm on top of the world right now. I'm like the happiest I've been in a long time right now. So, yeah.
And the culmination of this forgiveness and this accrual of power can be seen in the war, when Kakashi has to stand toe-to-toe with the physical representation of the thing that sent him into a down spiral, the loss of Obito. And as Obito stands there across from Kakashi, extolling God
damn. Those two. Virtues
that are the opposite of what he had told Kakashi prior to his own death, Kakashi's character arc finally comes to a close, as he stands on the brink of oblivion with a friend who shut the entire world out through pain and suffering and brings him back. It's very easy to sign Kakashi off as the hot, cool face
the hot, cool
mask character, but I genuinely believe more than anybody in the entirety of this show, he represents important and critical talking points in our own society. And his character arc is one of the best in anime, because he goes from a little helpless boy who just lost his father and idol to a man who led Konoha out of the brink of destruction after the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. Kakashi becoming Hokage shows that his journey is complete.
Yeah. Love it. Absolutely love it.
And it's even in line with his values as a child. See, Kakashi has once again brought honor to the Hatake name, but he did it in the way that Sakamo would have wanted. As the Hokage, he has the entire village's ear to extol the virtues of friendship, and making sure that those around you are protected before the mission itself is. And that is how you write a character. I would say I hope this video changes the way that you look at Kakashi, but if you're watching...
Oh, mate, it had. I mean, I always thought Kakashi was boss, and I loved, you know, everything about him, but, like, I've not read the novels and stuff, so obviously there's bits I've missed, and getting this little back into it. It's boss. It's so sick.
In this video, you probably already love it. But if you love him more, guys, tell me in the comments below, and while you guys are
defo gonna do some more you know nothing about. Bam.
Down there, please, for me.
Reactions.
Like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Listen, I'm not saying that Kakashi's character arc is better than Gaara's or Naruto's, but I wouldn't have minded him being the main character.
And like I said at the start, Noxtaku always had that whole, he felt like Kakashi was the main character because he had so much going on that affected the story, and you can't deny that. And it's mad that he's not in Boruto. Where is he? But yeah, that was really awesome. That was really cool. And yeah, I want to check out more NC Hammer videos down the line. Probably just keep going with the you know nothing about, because it's really interesting, really intriguing to learn, because I'm literally just like the source. I say source material, like, because it's source material anyway. You know, just the manga mainly. So, you know, but anyway, thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video and want to be able to watch patron-only reactions, such as the original Dragon Ball series, link is in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is all I ask. Tell us to watch. It's great. Thank you for that. And thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? You guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't. Leave comments down below. Let me know how you watch and discuss in future videos. So I'll see you guys next time.